Welcome to Ginga FC, baby. Well, working title. Actually, you know what? Drop your comments right here. What should we call this? Right now it's the Brasileirão Weekly, but I like Ginga FC. But this is your weekly fix of Brasileirão football, served with flavor, heart, and that Brazilianaire mindset. I'm Victor. He's Vino. We're talking storylines, rivalries, drama, and previewing the beautiful madness that makes Brazilian football the most passionate show on earth. Whether you're a diehard fan or just getting into the game, we got you. Subscribe to the channel, hit the chat with your hot takes, and let's talk ball the Brazilian way. You know the season's starting, right? Did you know the season was starting before I texted you?
No,
minutes ago.
I always knew that it was at the end of March that it was starting, but I was not aware that it was this weekend.
Well, when we were doing those Cruzeiro podcasts, I was like, oh, there's like 30 days until the season starts.
Yeah.
And I didn't even post all the videos. I think today was the last, or yesterday was the last Matheus Pereira video. I got some views. It was nice. Anyways. Nice. Yeah, we're recapping the season, or I guess we're running down the season. It's a pretty exciting one, man. Whatever. I'm going to say all of that shit anyways because I want people to watch this shit. But it's the most exciting Brasileirão season that's ever happened because this is the first time that you and I are going to cover it. So.
That's what it needed. That's the one thing it was missing. Yeah.
In English with real context and personality, and
it's
honestly,
the most exciting season for me because
literally for me too, though, brother.
Yeah,
it's not that I'm not saying that we're always gonna be right, but we're always gonna be fucking hilarious. All right, cool. Let's start from the top. Botafogo was last year's champion, and the Libertadores champion. But they lost 16 of the players of last year's roster, basically.
Oh my goodness!
And it important pieces like Luis Henrique, which was kind of one of their wingers, really fast, really really good player. He used to play for Betis in Spain, and he came in he helped them win the Libertadores, one of their kind of key star players. And then this guy got caught up in a betting scandal. And then they had to ship his ass out to Russia so that he could avoid the scandals. God. And I think legally, technically, it's still with the courts. But come on, brother. Even getting your name involved, there's some sort of scandal where it's this other player's dad that enticed him to, and some craziness.
Did they go to John Texter's other teams, or did they just what happened? How did the team just get blown up like that?
Good question. I don't really remember all of the transfers that they have. Maybe I can pull up Transfer Market or something to see. But Thiago Almada was another one. Thiago Almada, he's a young Argentinian. He's 23 years old. He used to play for Atlanta FC in the MLS, and he went to Lyon. So he was one of the ones who, went to different teams. But let's see here. I'm gonna pull up the rest of Botafogo's transfers. Oh, technically. So here's according to Transfer Market. He was on loan from he's on loan from Botafogo to Lyon. So he's coming back in the middle of the year, let's say. June 30th, 2025. So kind of 2 months into the season. Who knows? Let's see if that's the case, eh? So that's sneaky. That's kind of one of the things we were talking about John Texter and John Texter's Botafogo is they do that kind of stuff, So, okay, 25. That would be 25-26 season, right?
Yeah. Doesn't the season end in December?
Yeah, it's just the 25 season. I like that, though. That's clean.
I like it, too. I hate that it goes over the year. Just keep it in
Bro,
one.
prepare yourselves. You knew this was coming. Yeah. Okay, so, oh, fuck. Okay, okay. So their arrivals or their departures, Botafogo's departures last year are Luis Henrique. They sold him for 33 million euros apparently to Zenit. Zenit was also trying to buy Matheus Pereira, famously, as you remember. They also sold a right winger called Junior Santos to Atlético Mineiro actually. So inter championship rivals, let's say, for 7.6 million. Dang. They sold one of their star forwards, like that. He kind of, was their main goal scorer for the first 2 years of this like renaissance of Botafogo. Chiquinho Soares. They sold him to Santos, like newly promoted. Neymar's fresh teammate, Chiquinho Santos. There's other players though. Oscar Romero. Romero went to Internacional for free. Cheche went to Vasco da Gama for free. So a lot of the players they
just let them go. They're just selling a bunch of players and losing them in free agency.
Yeah, they sold their main kind of ones, and Luis Henrique, Junior Santos both played on the right wing. Eduardo was kind of like, he went to Cruzeiro actually. He's like kind of a backup, like a smart, like let's say a 6-man type of midfield player, like a Sean Livingston kind of like, he could run your offense, he could run defense, plays multiple positions. But they also signed some players. They signed this guy named, Wendell. I actually famously, admittedly, don't really know him, but his name is Wendell.
Famously, admittedly, don't even know him.
I famously won't know a lot of these players.
That's fine. So they but like Globo here still has them like ranked pretty high. Like they're in the tier 2. They're in like the fourth best, apparently fourth best projected team of the league. So like,
really?
How are they?
Yeah.
How are they
coming into the season?
Yeah. What's their like? What does it look like for them? What's their narrative? What's their timeline like? What's their expectations for the season? You think?
Well, expectations are high. As defending champions, they did lose some of their star players or star power.
I mean,
but they
16.
still have a
That's
really
like
capable roster.
A team and a half.
Yeah, they still have a really. They still really have a really capable roster. Yeah, there's a team and a half really that they lost, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like pieces around the edge that they did as well. You know what I mean? And they did sign some pieces to kind of like recompose that edge.
Okay,
but
so it wasn't like the core of the team.
Top. Like it was like Luis Henrique was one of their star players. Thiago Almada was one of their like main driver kind of players. So they do lose quite a bit of their potency, but. Again, they're Botafogo. They have money. They're sponsored by a super rich dude who, you never know. In the middle of the year, Thiago Almada is scheduled or slated to come back. So,
right.
Expectations are high for them to defend. And because they have a billionaire owner who could just like splash cash or just make things happen, like you never know, right? And right now they're coming into the season not so bad. Like, they performed okay in the Carioca, I think, but they're coming in with a new coach. So their coach that won it all for them last year kind of had a rough exit. He exited out the back door, as they say, pela porta dos fundos. And he kind of like held out for contract negotiations. And I think he ended up going to like Saudi Arabia or one of those like rich UAE teams. So, they're reformulating the team, still got some good pieces, but it's maybe like a little bit of like Raptors after the 2019 championship. They lost their Kawhi factors, and we'll see. We'll see if what remains is strong enough to go with the other pieces they've added, or it's just like a shell of itself, that has to be reset eventually.
Dang. Okay. So that's Botafogo. So Botafogo, that's a team from Rio, but they're not the main team. The main team from Rio is Flamengo. What's their outlook of the season? Team,
even in Brazil, I mean, they've got one of the strongest rosters. They've got one of, they've got a great coach in Felipe Luis, who used to be a left back at them at the team and left back for Brazil.
Player became coach.
Yeah, he's
nice.
Player became coach. It was really cool. And before they had Chichi, who was like the head coach of the Seleção. So Flamengo is one of their main. One of the main Brazilian teams right now.
Definitely the biggest fan base, like all over the country.
The
people cheer for them. Base.
Yeah, they're kind of like Lakers in a way, where it's kind of like wearing their jersey as like a social kind of statement. You know what I mean? Like in Brazil, it's different because you don't just wear random teams like jerseys. Like here in Toronto, you could be a Raptors fan, but you wear Lakers, like retro,
culture.
Kareem, yeah. But in Brazil, not so much. But the camisa do Flamengo, like the Flamengo jersey, is kind of a part of Brazilian culture, whether positive or negative. But it is a part of it. they have a great roster, like I said. Arrascaeta, who's been there for a while, Bruno Henrique, De La Cruz is this Argentinian like midfielder. So, really, really strong squad. Gerson is like one of the star players, like a really strong midfield, a really strong attacking core. That they're expected to do big things this year. And I would say they're probably one of the favorites for the title, if not the favorite. But a team who would disagree would be Palmeiras, who's kind of like next up on the list.
Palmeiras
They're
is
also
like the Celtics, right? They're like green and white.
Yeah.
They're from São Paulo, which is like the rival big city.
The big city, like East Coast, whereas like Rio is like the coastal beach city, which is like, reminiscent of LA, let's say. Palmeiras is also the rich, like they're known as like the rich middle class team. They always have it good, like they always had a financial backer to like back them up because they're kind of like the elites, Palmeiras, like Cruzeiro, they started out as Palestra Itália. Sociedade Esportiva Palmeiras is what their name is. Palmeiras Sports Society. But they started out as like an Italian immigrant team, and it became kind of what it is today. They have this sort of like stereotype online, and I think in Brazil, of just being like the spoiled rich white kids, like oh, daddy's money kids, like they're and Palmeiras fans kind of get made fun of for it, but you know what, like over their history they've had a lot of success. So what happens, like taking it a step back, like there is a company called Crefisa, which for all intents and purposes like payday loans, like kind of like a loan sharks sort of situation,
money mart,
like legal money, but like bigger, because in Brazil people need credit and people will buy things like over, like, oh, you buy a TV, you could pay for it over the next 184 months, like pay $100 for 184 months, and it's like, boom, okay, I'll do that shit easy, no worries. It's like, sir, do you know how long 184 months is? It's a long time.
Yeah.
Anyways, there's this, the owner of that company is a Palmeirense fan. She's a lady. She's a boss lady. So she's now the president of Palmeiras, and she injects a lot of cash plus smart business practices, like selling players well, closing good like sponsorships and deals. So she injects some like professionalism into Palmeiras, as well as like the expertise and money, but Palmeiras, candidate for the title. Nice. One of the best coaches in Brazil right now, Abel Ferreira, which is a Portuguese coach actually, but he's been there for a while at the team, and they are kind of the same, like players that do well in other clubs. Palmeiras is one of the only teams in Brazil that can afford to go in and spend that cash. Flamengo is another, and Corinthians, who we'll get to, is yet another. But Palmeiras, because they literally have their fairy godmother or their sugar mama right there, like feeding it to them. Flamengo kind of prints money because they're so popular and they sell so much, tickets and jerseys and blah, blah, blah. Corinthians is kind of like, it's kind of that guy who is always broke, but somehow he's always asking you for money, and somehow you're always lending him money, and he always like, I'll hit you back the next one, And they always kind of make it happen. And Corinthians is like, there's a lot of pressure for playing at Corinthians.
So Corinthians,
like the fans will get at you.
Yeah, they're to me, they're the like.
Should I wrap up?
Oh well.
Go ahead.
To me, Corinthians
we're just jumping.
Yeah, Corinthians is like the team that like everybody hates, like the Cowboys or like the the Leafs, I guess. Like the team that like has this fan base that other fan bases like hate, but like they are successful. They're a big fan base and they're successful. They're another team out of São Paulo, and they're like in the second tier. So that was like the contenders for the title. This is like second tier, Libertadores contenders, like Continental Cup.
I mean, honestly, Corinthians could be a contender for the title, but I don't know. It's Corinthians, like you said. It's not necessarily that they're always good. They are one of the biggest fan bases, and they, like Flamengo, they're kind of known as being like the people's team, and by that sometimes a negative stereotype of being like poor people's team. Right. So, and that is kind of like, favela. It's associated with like a negative image, but the Corinthians fans are very like hooligan-y, where like when players aren't performing well, they'll go like catch them out at home or to their kids like schools. Like there was a story of like some of the organized, how should I call it, torcida organizada, like organized fan base.
Yeah, fan base.
Like, but really what it is a gang, like disguised as the identity of fans, like of cheering for this team. But like, so they went to a motel where this dude was like hanging out with strippers, and like they went in the room and sought him out and like, you know, brought him out and was like, you better fucking perform, like, you know, we're gonna get you, bro. Like, jeez. And the guy's kind of like just there like, I'm sorry, man. Like, yeah, so like
fucking trying my best.
I'd be like, fuck you. I do not want to go to Corinthians. That sort of pressure. Like, yeah, fuck that shit. You know, like I could get, plus they probably wouldn't pay me. Like, and Corinthians, like I said, like they're kind of cash strapped and they like promise you the world and they never pay on payday. And that's not just to other teams that they buy players from. It's from their actual players as well. Like, wow. And Corinthians is the type of team and the type of environment where if the player isn't getting money, like any employee would, they would just like, you know, sue their team and become a free agent and go to any other team. But at Corinthians is like, well, you fucking suffer, you don't get paid, and you better fucking perform, bro, because this is Corinthians, you know, like shit is serious, bro.
Crazy.
But Corinthians, you know, they just won the Paulista State Championship over Palmeiras, one of their biggest rivals. They come into it and a contender as well. Like, but they were eliminated in the Libertadores like pre-stage. Like, remember when we talked about the Cruzeiro thing? Like, they were the 7th and 8th team. I think they were 8th, so they got into that last like G8 spot, and Cruzeiro was 9th. But they were eliminated from the pre-Libertadores by some like small Colombian or Ecuadorian team. Like, the fact that I don't even know, to be honest.
Right. Just to go over it real quick again, like in the tournament, in like the Brasileirão, the league, number 1 is the champion, and they automatically go, and the top 4 automatically go to Libertadores, which is the Champions League, and then the next the two under them, 5 and 6, they get like a play-in for the Champions League of South America, the Libertadores, and then the next bunch of teams, they make it into the Sul-Americana, which is the Europa League of South America. And then there's 2 teams that are just chilling, and then there's 4 teams that get relegated. So we'll break them down by tiers. Like moving forward.
Okay. Yeah. Is that what we're doing? That's definitely not what I've been doing.
Well, that's pretty much what we've been doing. Those are like, I would say like Palmeiras, Flamengo, and Botafogo are the like contenders. I'm sure there's like other teams that, you know, it's not like a defined line, but according to Global here, that's how they have separated the tiers.
That's how they have it, sure. But like Internacional also has a really good like outlook of the season. They have a pretty strong squad. They usually perform really well. Like, they are one of the teams from Rio Grande do Sul, so that's in the south of the country. Different kind of vibe, you know.
It's the 4th biggest market, arguably.
Nice. Look, someone did their research, man. This is great. I appreciate the kind of like the color commentary that you're doing, because it's like it's adding a lot of spice, you know, like it's giving me a little bit of direction too, of like, okay, oh shit, like where should I zoom out, you know, because I'm just kind of having a convo with my brother.
Yeah, man. Of course. I'm really coming at it from the perspective of like someone who's never knows nothing about Brazilian football. Like, here is the context for you guys, and you're coming at it from the perspective of like, all right, I'm talking to you about the season, like talking to a fellow Brazilian. Yeah, exactly. Okay,
and you know what? The people who don't know this, maybe they should watch. And I don't know if it's been posted. Watch our podcast where we talked about it. Watch our like little conversation. That was a live one, right? Like, you know, or is that not posted yet?
I don't know. I think it's posted. I think they've all been posted. Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Good. So anyway, Internacional is a red and white team from
the south of Brazil. Rio Grande do Sul. They play in Porto Alegre. Last year, the south of Brazil was ravaged by like flooding and intense rain. So, you know, aside from the people, along with the people who lost their homes and jobs and lives, some of them, Internacional and the other southern teams like kind of lost some of their you know, their fire, let's say, or their momentum of the season. But they were champions of the Rio Grande do Sul, the Gauchão, the Rio Grande do Sul State Championship. They have a coach called Roger Machado, which he's a good coach, I guess. Like, I don't really put a lot of faith into him, but he can manage good. Like when you're a coach in football and soccer, you have to be a people manager. So that's what they call them, right? Like, they call them managers and not coaches.
Yeah.
So he's like a star player manager. And Internacional ended the season really well. Like, they went on a tear. They were kind of like lagging in the lower kind of portion of the table. And then especially with like some of the games that they had to kind of postpone. And then when they came back, they kind of like tore it up, and they got one of the Libertadores like automatic qualification spots, I believe. They have a good squad. Alan Patrick is Alan Patrick. It's funny when it's like, I'm going to say it in Portuguese, but it's like, your name's Alan Patrick. Like, that's actually just English.
Yeah.
But like Vitão, not Vital. So Vitão is one of their main, like, he's the backbone of their defense. They have like this really old player called Fernando. He's 38 or 39. He's like a good defensive midfielder. And they have a good home field advantage, let's say, because playing in the south is always rough. The south of Brazil has this kind of like, it's close to Uruguay, and they have this more like, it was settled or inhabited or colonized, let's say, more by like Italian and mostly like German settlers. There's like cities there where you could see really like German Alpi vibes, where like people actually speak German, and like they're like tall, white, blonde hair, blue eyes, and it does kind of get cold there, but they have this like rough and tumble style of soccer, like
the
kind of like Argentina,
the Cowboys, like
the country, the macho man,
the Texans, like the Southerners.
Kind of like the Texans would, to me, would be more like in Goiás and Minas, where they have like those rich farm people,
Right.
the rich kind of cowboys. The Gaúchos are, how to describe
Alabama,
I don't know, kind of like, I mean, maybe think about like Swiss German, like Lederhosen, Oktoberfest.
Okay.
Yeah, like cattle ranchers, like
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, so Internacional is in that kind of echelon of like could challenge, could surprise some people. And
I think Cruzeiro could also
are
challenge.
A contender. Cruzeiro, yeah, funny you bring them up.
Yeah.
Cruzeiro, I think too, because Cruzeiro, like we famously have spoken about on the Fox's Den podcast, shameless plug, but go watch the Fox's Den podcast. The quality of conversation is 1,000,000 times better than the quality of the video, trust. Cruzeiro is, aside from our favorite team, one of the teams that had the biggest kind of like, change from last season, right? So recently they've dealt with like bankruptcy of a sorts, where the team was kind of decimated by just terrible management. They got relegated for the first time in their history to the second division, and then they were one of the only big teams that relegated and didn't immediately bounce back. Cruzeiro spent 3 years in the second division, and last year was like their second year back. And they were at the first stretch of the season, and I'd say the first half of the season, Cruzeiro looked like legit title contenders. Like, had a good young coach, was putting it all together, made the team more than the sum of its parts, but then it got bought by kind of a billionaire owner and who had a lot less patience. Like, Ronaldo used to be the owner before. He was a lot more patient in terms of squad building, and patient because he was cheap as fuck, so he didn't want to spend money. He was trying to do more of like a Moneyball-ish approach, but they weren't even really that great at the Moneyball kind of thing, if we're being honest. Like, the scouting department could have been built up a little bit better. But then you get bought by a billionaire who's like, okay, no scouting department, no long-term build, no waiting for the draft. Here's a lot of money. Buy me good players and make them win.
Yeah.
Make it happen. So, they had mid-season transfers fucking watch the shorts. Mid-season transfers didn't work out. Cruzeiro went from like being third at some point to like being ninth. Didn't make it into a like hilariously long list of teams who made it to the Libertadores. Like they were the first spot out. And then their owner came in and splashed even more cash, and they signed Flamengo icon Gabriel Barbosa, guy who was the guy for Flamengo. If not for the team, he is for the crowd. People loved him. He helped them win some championships, and so like that kind of shook Brazil. So Cruzeiro comes in like cool on paper, one of the stronger kind of lineups. They're already, I think, on their second coach, or if not third coach of the season, and the season hasn't even started. So it's just been like they had one guy do the preseason and then fired that guy, and then another guy like was here for an interim like kind of couple games, and then they brought in another guy. Cruzeiro could perform really well. On paper, they have a really strong lineup. They haven't been performing well right now. There's a lot of pressure on it. I think it's kind of a weird sort of toxic work environment. Their best player is going through, life shit. He's about to have a baby. Things are not, they're just not really gelling in Cruzeiro's world right now, but they could be, they could surprise people. They could challenge, they could be up there, for the title if they put it all together. If their coach, tomorrow, they're one of the teams that are going to play tomorrow. So tomorrow is going to be the big test. Like, how does that look?
Right.
And they're playing against Mirassol, which is like, we're not going to get to them for a while, but like, this is their first time playing in the first division. Like I think they're like a 25-year-old team. So like, should be a layup for Cruzeiro, like relatively. Like Mirassol is a strong candidate to do a bounce back. It's like a up and down kind of season, where you get relegated right away. But it's a kind of a lose-lose for Cruzeiro. It's like you beat them, it's like great, you beat Mirassol, like nice.
Yeah.
Or if you lose, it's like, wow, you lost to Mirassol, this season's over, fire this coach, get rid of everyone. Like, that's how Cruzeiro fans are.
Yeah, that's how all sports fans are.
Yes, yeah, fair enough.
Okay, so Cruzeiro is a team.
Cruzeiro is
Belo Horizonte, which is
right. That's what I was gonna say.
The third biggest market.
Nice. Look at Mr. Research over here. So the third biggest market, Belo Horizonte.
I mean, it's just like the Rio, São Paulo, and then there's Belo Horizonte, and then there's like Porto Alegre, like Rio Grande do Sul. They got a bunch of teams there, and then every other. There's other cities.
I would say football wise right now, Rio Grande do Sul is stronger than Minas because, they have 3 teams, I think, in the first division, or at least they did last year.
Yeah, I think they do this year. Yeah,
no, Juventude is in this year's division. So, stronger, but like good to know that. And you lived in Belo Horizonte. Like, what was that? How would you describe the vibe of the city, but also of Mineiro people? Miners.
Good question. The vibe of the city is very like, I don't know, very metropolis. Like it's just a lot of like high rises. It feels like you're like when in downtown Toronto, there's like a couple of blocks that have high rises and big buildings. It feels like Belo Horizonte is just everywhere. There's big buildings everywhere. The downtown feel is just massive. Like it's just all over the place. And there's a lot of hills and stuff. It literally is called Beautiful Horizon because of it's on a hill and it's got a lot of hills. The people were really nice. Like it was interesting seeing the comparison. Like we went to Rio for a bit and then we got back to Belo Horizonte and we're like, whoa, these people are way nicer. Like they're way more friendly and way like they would tell us like, oh, you guys better be careful. Like people will scam you. Like, and then in Rio, they just scam you. Like, they just take advantage of you. In Belo Horizonte, they like care. They're like, oh, yo, you guys like try not to speak English so loudly. Like, a lot of people will take advantage of you. Some waiter was like, oh, here's the like bill. Like, if I was meaner, this is how I would take advantage of you. So, and it's just like, wow, great, thanks. Really? Yeah.
He literally told you like this is how I take.
Well, I was asking like, what do I do to not get taken advantage of? He's like, well, always ask for the bill. Always confer like this with this with this with this. Yeah. And
Brother,
just stuff like
that's
that.
traveling 101, man. Anytime you're in a different country, like you gotta check.
I know, but like the point
Did
is,
they charge you for what?
the point is they're
Yeah,
being
the point is that-
nice, and they're like, instead of scamming me, they're warning me about people scamming. So like that's
In
nice.
Rio, they're like, hey, remember those guys I told you about? That's us.
Uh-huh.
So give us your money.
In Rio, we were like eating on the beach, and some guy comes up and he's like, "Oh, hey, what's your name?" I was like, "Oh, my name's Vinny." He's like, "That's my name too." Oh, he like starts crying. He's like, "I want to go home to my family. Can you please buy my cookies?" I was like, "Sure, man. Like, how many cookies?" He's like, "All right, buy all of them for 200 reals." I was like, "What the fuck, dude? I'll buy one box. Like, get the hell out of here." His name
Okay,
is
he
my
wasn't even-
name too.
That's a classic, man. In Rio, I always get like, he's Latin. I was like, bro, those guys, like, Rio is a class of, like, especially Carioca people, of, like, building that quick rapport. They make you seem like you guys are homies from a long time ago, you know?
Yeah.
And it's, like, almost like, it's not like they're robbing you, but it's kind of like, you feel like, oh, yeah, okay, fine. I'll give you some money, you know?
Yeah.
I'll just buy these. It's not even like he's selling Girl Scout cookies. He was selling like fucking grocery store Dollarama cookies.
Yeah,
for,
he
like,
just
5,
bought
$10.
he just bought a box of cookies and he's just walking on the beach selling them. And like he had me. He pretty much had me. I was like, oh, I felt so bad for him. Like he was like crying. And then I turned to my wife and she's like, what did he say? And I'm like explaining it in English. And then he's like, she didn't hear any of that.
My biggest performance.
Yeah, and then I was like, as I was saying it out loud, like he wants me to give him $200 so he can go home. I was like, oh, fuck this guy! Like, get out of here, Mister.
Oh, true. When you break it down like that,
Yeah,
that's kind of
Kick
part
rocks.
of the thing too. They don't let you lose logic. You know, they appeal to the emotions. Anyways, this is not a how to avoid scams.
Anyways,
in Rio
yeah.
101.
Anyways,
We can do that at another podcast.
so the other
On
team
another combo.
in Belo Horizonte is Atlético Mineiro. They're
Well,
like a black and white team.
let me just, before I get to these shitheads,
They're our main rivals.
Yes.
Yeah.
In case that wasn't clear,
Okay.
the zebra shits, because they play in the zebra's butthole. Belo Horizonte was actually a planned city, so it wasn't even the capital of Minas Gerais before. There's a great Brazilian figure in history, historical figure, who was eventually the president, but he planned the city of Belo Horizonte to be exactly what you said, this metropolis, right, where it's the capital and you know the state kind of government is housed there, and so things in theory are more planned, and so that's why I guess you see like more kind of beautiful horizons, so to speak. But dude, it's so freaking hilly. Like that's not human to, if you don't have a car to go up those streets, like even if you do have a car, you have to have like a specially equipped like Formula One car that stays low to the ground and can push you up with your family and your overweight uncle and 3 like kids in the back. It's nuts, dude. Anyway, so cross town at the zebra's butthole, there is Atlético Mineiro also, who just won the Mineiro like state championship. Honestly, have been, you know, kind of spanking Cruzeiro. Not spanking, but like
they've been
showing
uncharacteristically
Cruzeiro what's
good
what.
for some years. Yeah.
Exactly. Growing up, that's not how it was. So it's,
Yeah.
you're right to say it's uncharacteristic, but they're kind of like had shown to be well run. Like they had shown to be like cool. They were everything that Cruzeiro was, and I was like, you know, begrudging respect. Like well run team, made good like acquisitions, had good pieces, like good coaching staff. You know, just kind of a good happy vibe around them. When Cruzeiro, which like we're gonna look at their kit, like they're friendly, they're nice, they're happy. Like the blue team, like it just looks, they look the good guys, and they were having like toxic, shitty bankruptcy, fucking terrible management, while Atletico was thriving. But now there's cracks in that armor, right? Atletico was one of the, you know, favorites for the title. They lost the Libertadores final to Botafogo, and they were up one guy. I think they were up two guys. Like Botafogo had 2 guys sent off at one point. So they had 2 more players on the field than the other team, and they still lost. They just sold one of their best players. Hulk is their kind of like their star player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So unless he gets angry,
They sold him?
It's pretty chill. No, they sold one of their kind of like best midfield players. Like Hulk was kind of oscillating, I think, last year. He shows up in big games, but Paulinho was kind of really the head of, or the brains of their midfield, and kind of made things run. But they did sign players like Rony, Junior Santos, and Coelho. Rony was like he used to play in Cruzeiro. He was at Palmeiras, like kind of mercurial too. So, they're a good team. They're still kind of going. They have a coach who was indicted for raping a woman back in the days.
Jeez.
Like maybe we got to edit that part out, but like maybe don't have a rapist as your coach.
Maybe.
Seems like a fair suggestion.
Yeah, it seems like a good place to start. Like, all right, guys.
Yeah.
Rule number 1.
No rapists as a coach.
Yeah.
And like it
No
always
rapists
comes
on
up
the team.
yeah, exactly. It always comes up for Cruzeiro, like, or it has come up with Cuca, which is their coach right now. When people are like, back when Cruzeiro was like looking for coaches in that multiple period where they fired their coaches, and people were like, no. The fans were always like, no, fuck that guy. Like, we don't want no rapists around here.
Nice.
It's already bad enough.
Yeah. It's funny, like there's such a rivalry between Atletico and Cruzeiro, and like you see it a lot, like in Brazil, you see it a lot in like families. Like the wife will be Cruzeirense, the husband will be Atleticano. Like your kids are born, one of them, like they'll pick sides. Your cousins are all different, and like obviously I'm biased, but like the Cruzeiro fans are just kind of peaceful and like chill, and the Atletico fans are always angry, and they're so passionate, and they're just like toxic, in my opinion, obviously.
No, fair enough. I mean, I would love to get like, maybe we should go on the street and be like, okay, which one of these teams do you prefer? Because like to me, and again, also to like you said, bias, but to me, Atletico, like they're the bad guys. Clearly, you look at their logo, look at their jerseys. Like if not the bad guys, then they're like, whatever. Like what's drawing me to this team? Cruzeiro is just fun. Like it looks cool. It's the uniform is such a beautiful shade of blue. Like the logo is interesting, and it's like, whoa, like
it's so tied
and like,
to Brazilian culture and history. Like the cross constellation, the Cruzeiro name is like a constellation you can only see in South America. The money was called Cruzeiro for some time. Like Atlético Mineiro, so Cruzeiro's the athletic club of Minas,
of Minas Gerais,
of General Mines,
which is like
great.
Which is the athletic club of General Mines.
Yeah, and then we're
like how a lot of these teams started.
Yeah.
But Cruzeiro, for example, they started as the Italian immigrant team of the city as well, Palestra Italia. And then during World War II, they had to change. There was a law in Brazil where you could not be associated with fascists. Like, again, ahead of our times, could not be associated with fascists. And so Cruzeiro changed from Palestra Italia to Cruzeiro. Which again, it was exactly that. Like the money used to be Cruzeiro. Cruzeiro do Sul is the Southern Cross constellation. It's not only visible in South America, but the Southern Hemisphere. But it is something that it is kind of tied to the collective like nature and experience of being in Brazil, right? And it's so unique, man. The uniform is beautiful. Like I don't know, shoot it in the comments if you're really like a neutral observer here. Like which of these two teams would you cheer for? Which of these two teams, like, really you look at it and you're like, damn, these guys are the ones that, like, make me want to cheer for them, Like, to me, it's kind of like looking at Brooklyn Nets versus, like, I don't know, Charlotte Hornets or Toronto Raptors, like, purple. It's like, do you want to cheer for this fun dinosaur team or this black and white text? Like, whatever. This school? Like, get out of here.
Yeah.
Fun purple dinosaurs, please.
Yeah. Clearly the heroes. Anyways,
the heroes. Exactly.
Moving on to the other. So they're also in like tier 2, like could surprise tier. From
they're in the I don't know if they're in the Libertadores this season. They're in the Sudamericana, so they could also potentially get in Cruzeiro's way. Cruzeiro is in the Sudamericana, and that's kind of one of their big hopes for the season is to win the Sudamericana. It's reachable. It's doable. We're talking about the second division of continental, competition. So think Europa League, right? But Europe has a lot more teams in countries. Like Europa League has a certain level of
quality
of quality, right? And like, sure, Brazil, we get 5, maybe 6 Libertadores like qualifiers, and like those are our strongest teams. Like it means something. They make it difficult. Argentina too, you know, they have like these strong, well-built teams. Even like Colombia has some teams that are like well put together and surprise. Ecuador, like, you know, South American football is exciting if a little violent and kind of exhausting, because like some teams like in Ecuador or in Peru, for example, they play in altitude. So like that's a challenge for a Brazilian team to go midweek to a high altitude place and perform, you know? But when you start scraping like the second tier sort of like Ecuadorian teams and Colombian teams, like you're not getting a lot of talent really. Like, so for Cruzeiro, like you got to, or even for Atletico, you got to win. You got to make it to the semis at the very least, brothers. Mm-hmm. Anyways, moving forward, next in that sort of like tier
is São Paulo FC. That's in the tier 2, the could surprise tier.
St. Paul Football Club.
Yeah.
Is it? No, it's not.
São
Paulo is, I guess, named after the city of St. Paul, though.
Yeah.
St. Paul, Minnesota.
It was named
little known fact.
It was named after St. Paul because it was founded on St. Paul Day. A lot of Brazilian cities are like, oh, this was founded January 1st, January River. Like
January River.
Rio de Janeiro. Oh, this was founded on this day. We're gonna call it this name.
Yeah.
São Paulo Day.
This is
St. Paul.
This is the place where they built the fortress. The name Fortaleza.
Yeah. Literally.
Oh, this is the bay. Okay, name Bahia.
Bahia, yeah.
Literally the
oh, there's a big reef out there. Recife.
Big reef.
Yeah, big reef.
I love it.
Anyway, so São Paulo.
I think São Paulo, if they knew the city would be that popular, I think they would want to be like, no, let's name it something more catchy, guys. But like, sure, São Paulo FC is kind of in that Cruzeiro echelon where Cruzeiro / Palmeiras echelon. It's kind of like it's the higher, kind of more elite class people it's associated to. But passionate fans, well managed is where I was kind of going with that higher echelon example. Like traditionally, those teams have been well managed, kind of like well kept afloat, made smart decisions. And São Paulo, not only have they had a lot of international success, like in the Libertadores, they've also won some club world championships. They, for a long time in my kind of growing upness, used to kick Cruzeiro's ass. Like, doesn't matter how good Cruzeiro was, you know that we're going to lose to São Paulo. Like, automatic defeats. And I think they won, like, triple back-to-backs. Like, they won 3 years in a row in, like, 05, 06, 07 maybe. And they had this, like, spell of dominance in the early 2000s. Like, São Paulo's always up there. They have a good academy system, so they always, like, selling players, revealing players and selling them really well, even if those players like Anthony don't really work out so well. They make a lot of money for it, and now they have a good roster too. They brought back Oscar, who was Oscar, who was in China. He was like used to be a big like seleção player, like a good brainy midfielder. They have Lucas Moura. Oscar and Lucas Moura are two like homegrown talents that went abroad. Lucas Moura used to play in Tottenham. He used to play for the Brazilian national team for a long time as well. And, coming in pretty strong. They have a really good home field advantage too. They own their own arena, so really good. They perform really well. They're kind of known as a team who, they never really flounder. They're one of two teams, along with Flamengo, who have never been relegated from the first division. So again, super smart, and they have a guy on their base called Rian Francisco, which is Ryan Francisco. I love when people's names are Ryan, but it's just a cool name,
Mm-hmm.
I think that kind of about wraps it up for São Paulo. We don't have to talk about them that much.
Okay, sure, yeah. We talked about Corinthians, so that wraps up the tier 2 teams. Moving on to the tier 3 teams, we have Bahia leading that.
Bahia. Is that Bahia? I would put as a tier 2 team actually. Like Bahia is owned by Man City Group, so Bahia has the potential to throwing in some inject cash wherever they can.
Mm-hmm.
They have a pretty solid like lineup. I would say that they're kind of in that like tier 2 contender category because they're like owned by Citigroup, so they're really smart with their money. They have lots of it if they need it. There's not a lot of pressure or expectations on them. They've kind of nailed that smart like Red Bull racing way of building stuff, where it's like, let's sign these good promising young players that kind of gel as a team, and not just like, oh, whatever is the best young players. Like and I think they're kind of that team where it's like no pressure, no expectations. Obviously the crowd is puts that pressure on them, but like imagine Bahia is not like one of the football powerhouses of Brazil. You're living by the beach, which like Bahia is one of the best kind of beach and cities. Salvador is one of the best cities kind of in Brazil, let's say, in terms of beauty, arguably. And this is just like a really well-run, well-managed team with low expectations on them. A really good coach in Rogério Ceni who knows how to manage a squad. They've got a player in Everton Ribeiro who is like more of a veteran now. He used to play for Cruzeiro. He was the main player on like those in that 2013-14 Cruzeiro back-to-back Brasileirão championships, and then since then his career really took off. He played in Europe. He didn't play in Europe. He played in China, I think, or UAE. He played for the Seleção, and then he played for Flamengo for a few years. Like became an idol there, won some Libertadores, and then he got, I guess, like released. So he came to Bahia on a free, and he's really, again, the star of the team with low pressure and expectations, like way lower than he would have at Flamengo, and the team being able to like really protect him, where like he's not asked to do much on defense, not asked to like really exert himself that much. He's asked to be the brains. He's asked to be like that number 10, and he's killing it. He's got good weapons to feed the ball to, and a team that is kind of built to get the most out of him, and has good players. That's Bahia.
Nice.
Meanwhile, their rivals, Vitória, garbage. No, just kidding.
What's the expectations for them? Like Libertadores or Sul-Americana?
I would say they could challenge for Libertadores, but like in that kind of sweet spot, 5, 6, 7, 8, like
Nice.
Getting into a dance number.
Yeah.
But like in that sweet spot, anything higher than that is great. I think like Sul-Americana will be fine for them in terms of like their ownership group. Fans wise, I don't know, probably hoping that they get top 3, 4, like that automatic Libertadores qualification.
Mm-hmm. What about their rivals Vitória then? They just came up from the Serie B, the second division.
No,
they're probably going to get relegated. I'm pretty sure.
No, I think no. They were in Serie A. They were in the first division last year, and they were kind of like in the risk, like always in that like risky area. I think they came up, and so they were kind of like one of those like one and done candidates. But they had like a little bit of a run, a streak, if you will, in the end of last season, and so they avoided that. They've got an interesting coach in Thiago Carpini, who's like kind of a younger generation Brazilian soccer coach who has like more kind of modern ideas of football. They have a player called Mateuzinho. They have a good home. They have a great crowd, and there's like some videos on Instagram. I think I've sent you some. But there's always some cool videos where it's like it's in the crowd during this game, and to just kind of like get into this like really groovy sort of chant, and it's like Shama Samu Baiano people are like, they've got that swing in them. They've got that like that like African rhythms, like they've got that like that's the heart and soul of Brazil. That's obviously where they had like a negative kind of history where with the slavery times, but like that that Afro-Brazilian that's where exactly the Afro-Brazilian culture that makes Brazil so awesome. Like That's kind of the birthplace. The food is really good. The people seem really nice and friendly. There's a stereotype that they're kind of like the sloths, like, yeah, relax, man, everything's gonna happen, like island time, and it's super hot in Bahia, like always, always, always super hot,
True. So if you want to root for like the big dogs in Bahia, you would root for Bahia, the team that is owned by Man City Group. And if you want to root for the underdogs, you'd root for Vitória, which means victory.
Yes.
And it's not from
funny,
the city Vitória.
And it's not from the city Vitória, which is the capital of Espírito Santo, which is Holy Spirit. And you thought it was from the city Vitória. No, they're crosstown Salvador rivals. Yeah. Salvador, which means savior. Nice. Which is the savior, the capital of Bay. The state of Bay.
Okay.
All right, cool. I did a little jump.
That's fine.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Moving on to Santos, a team from São Paulo State, but not São Paulo City. State. The team of originally Pelé and now Neymar.
Yes, and Neymar is back in Brazilian football, and that is for sure going to dominate a lot of the storylines. Santos, since they signed him, have seen like this renaissance on social media where like their YouTube account grew a whole bunch, like their Instagram account, like they're really milking it. And like Santos kind of has been this like sort of media darling. They are famously, or they're famous for their kind of like youth academy that's churned out like just consistently great generational players like Pelé, back in the day, like Diego, Elano, Robinho before he was a rapist as well, or whatever he is, like sexual abuser. Like they've had those consistent, and then even Neymar when he came up, there was also this guy Ganso, which is on Fluminense, but like a great smart midfielder. There's this other guy André who played with them and it was like a goal scoring number 9 shirt. But like so Santos comes in. They're with Neymar always going to be a good roster. I'm not the biggest Neymar fan. I'm not a hater by any means, but I just don't think he really adds much to the team element. It's great because he's that player that can make the difference, but on the Brazilian squad and in a lot of the teams that he is a part of, because he's so like that star power, they end up doing whatever he wants. This guy doesn't really practice. He doesn't really like take care of his body like that. And there's just like that media circus around him. And just ends up kind of bleeding into the team. Like on the Brazilian national team, I feel like it's a lot of kind of like give the ball to LeBron and let's see what he can do, which is like cool in the NBA if you're LeBron, but I don't think Neymar is at the level of LeBron even. He's kind of like a DeMar DeRozan to me. And you don't give the ball to DeMar DeRozan. And also soccer is kind of like soccer is not like a sport where one guy can make that much of a difference, and just to clarify, like Neymar is great. I'm not saying he's DeMar DeRozan by any slight to any of them, but it's more so just like DeMar DeRozan was never really shown that capability of putting a team on his back and taking them to the promised land. He kind of still has those holes in his game. Yes, sure.
Like an elite scorer,
but just like with
not
Kevin,
like a team like leader.
Yeah, Kevin Durant's not putting anything on his back like that's over his body weight because he will break his whole damn legs. Yeah. But that's Santos. They've got they always have potential and they have Neymar. I don't even know who the fuck else they have on their team. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But they're gonna be like if they make if they're like top 10 of the table, I think that's a good season for them. I don't think they're fans are gonna be happy, but like they just got promoted from the second division, so they could be a one and done candidate. And I'm pretty sure Neymar is gonna leave soon. Like he's not sticking around for the long term. This is just kind of his stepping stone in between. He's between girlfriends right now, so he just came back to live with his parents for a bit.
Right. Wow. Okay, what do you think is their like expectation, like Libertadores or Sudamericana?
So I said top, like if they make top 10, like that's great for them. Their expectations probably like Sudamericana, like and for being realistic, like they could probably push 5 or 4 if everything works out. So maybe the most optimistic of their fans is thinking like, 3 or 4. There's also the Copa do Brasil, which is like the Brazilian Cup. So, however far you make it in there, that helps your team make some money and kind of establish some extra budget, let's say, for next year. So I think for Santos, if they can make like the quarterfinals or the semifinals of the Copa do Brasil, just the fact that they have Neymar, I think for them is super happy.
Nice. So moving on,
and they got this Argentinian like striker. Sorry, let's move on.
Moving on to Fluminense, which is another team from Rio. They're like the big rivals, usually like historically to Flamengo. Flamengo is like the people's team. Fluminense is like the elites team, the upper echelon elites.
Let's say. Yeah.
Tell me more about them.
Yeah, so they were like almost relegated last year. They, even though the year before they had won the Libertadores, but it just goes to show like soccer is like that, football is like that. They have a coach called so they signed 11 players, so they kind of like changed up their whole squad. Don't ask me who in mind because I don't have that in front of me right now. But they had a not great squad, and then they signed 11 players. So the hope is those players are going to make the squad better. But I still believe that, like, they're like a meh team. They have a coach called Mano Menezes, who's like the definition of just like mediocre coaching. Like, he like stumbled his way into like great gigs. Like, he was the coach of Corinthians. He was the coach of the Seleção Brasileira. Maybe he's a good manager of like a group, like a team of stars, let's say, but football wise, he's more like a let's sit back and counter kind of guy than like a let's put on a show, So I don't put a lot of faith into him. They've got a player called Santiago Arias who's probably going to go to Europe. Really great player, kind of like a left wing or left fullback there. I'm surprised he hasn't gone to Europe yet. They have one of the top goal scorers in the country in the last few years. Germán Cano, which is Argentinian guy, but scores a heck of a lot of goals. They have a great goalkeeper in Fabio, which is a Cruzeiro legend, let's say, icon. They have Thiago Silva. Thiago Silva is like big, huge Brazilian legend. Chelsea used to play, and he's back. He was a Fluminense like product. He was a kid who he started his career there. And oh wow, I'm looking at a picture of Fabio. He's skinny as fuck. God damn, good for him, boy. He's like 45 years old. He's always been kind of on the chubby end. Like, you could see his face is a little like fatter, but look at this dude. Looks like he's on Ozempic. It's bad. No, but yeah, that's Fluminense. Probably expectation for them is like mid-table as well. If they can not fight relegation this year, that would be great for them, I would say. Like, if they can, if they're in it next year, they're happy. But again, like, I'm not expecting anything huge. Like, they're gonna present a challenge. They're gonna push teams like Flamengo, Palmeiras. Like, they're gonna push those contenders to have hard games, and they might have some upsets, but then they're gonna lose to like Juventude, Mirassol, like at home. Like, that's kind of what I think Fluminense is gonna be.
Okay, so moving back to the big river of the South, Rio Grande do Sul.
Big river of the South.
Internationals rivals, Grêmio. What's going on with them?
Grêmio, which I think it translated like Grêmio is just like a grouping of people, agremiação, like so it's just like group of people football club.
I read
literally
that
they spell football like.
I read that they were like the elites, and they wouldn't let they would only let a specific type of people in, like maybe like the Italians and the Germans,
white people.
Yeah, and then international
specific type of people.
Internacional, their rivals opened up with the motto like anybody can play here, like everybody come play here. So I guess they're more like the people's team of the
people's
state.
team. Yeah, it's similar to like what like kind of in Milan, in Milano, in Italia. They have that, right? They have AC Milan, And then they have their crosstown rivals, which is the Internazionale. In this case, the colors are kind of opposite because Inter in Brazil is red and white, and then in Italy it's black and blue, kind of like Grêmio.
Right.
Grêmio is technically tricolor, but okay, fine. Grêmio is interesting. They have
Everyone
some,
has white, so
but literally their name is like tricolor, tricolor. You know,
yeah.
Tricolor Gaúcho. So it's like the tricolor team from Rio Grande, the Great River of the South. It's funny. Do they not call it the Rio Grande? No, is the Rio Grande in the fucking in Texas somewhere? Yeah. Anyways, whatever.
Yeah.
So they have a coach called Gustavo Quinteros. They lost the Gaúcho State Championship to the crosstown rivals. They have a player who's a former Barcelona player called Martin Braithwaite. And what's interesting about Martin Braithwaite, other than his name that no one's able to say, but Martin Braithwaite, not only do Barcelona fans probably hate him, or just kind of like, whatever, good. He's not on our team anymore, whatever. We wish you the best, buddy. Just please don't ever come back to Barcelona.
Jeez.
But Braithwaite, he's Danish. So, like, really? Cool. What? You have what's your tie to Brazil? Why are you playing in the Brazilian league? Like, it's always cool to me when there's like foreigners like that. Like, obviously we get obviously Brazil is the magnet. It's like the feeder system, or it's like the biggest dream market for anybody in South America. That's probably where you'll get paid the most and have the most opportunities. But like, not for a Danish guy. Like, he could probably be playing in some sort of like lower end Premier League team or, you know, whatever. But honestly, respect. Like, come to Brazil. # come to Brazil. Leave that in the comments. He, you know, came to Brazil, lives chill, like probably gets paid a shit ton, like, and just like living the dream. Kind of like we neglected to mention when we talked about Cruzeiro, but Bolassi's like fucking a British man, and he's fucking living in Belo Horizonte.
Yeah,
and you know he's playing
a really
like crowd
interesting
favorite
experience, like just being fully.
I would
English
love to
speaking,
interview,
like,
man. I would love to interview those. I would love to interview any sort of like foreign player. This is an open invite. If you want to talk about your experience, I'd love to get your point of view. What made you come to the league? Why? What do you think about the league? How is it like different from what you're used to? For once and for all, how is practice and like how is like that treatment of like, you know, getting your body ready? Because I think that is why that is why Brazilian players don't really get along. Like, the star Brazilian players don't really get along well in Europe because they don't like practicing. So they get there and they're like, yo, I'm a star, bro. I'm not practicing. Practice. They go Allen Iverson on their ass. And then when they don't practice, then you don't play. Guess what, buddy? If you don't take care of your body, you're not going to play. If you don't show your coach work, you're not going to play. I don't care how expensive you are. I don't care who you were in Brazil. And so like a guy like Martin Braithwaite comes in, knows how to take care of his body. He's got that European work ethic, and he's just like kicking people's asses, you know? Yeah. But yeah, a cool roster, a good home field advantage. Like I said, they like Internacional, or like they play that southern style of football where they're gonna break you a little bit, and they'll, you know, the camera angle in their stadium is kind of weird, so it just looks like you're like watching it from a tower really high up. It gives me the impression that their stadium's very steep and maybe very big. But for them, I don't know. They're always kind of candidates. They're always like, their fans would kind of demand a lot out of them, especially because their crosstown rivals are like, you know, championship contenders. But I don't know. I don't know if their top table finish would be a great like look for them. And then like on their side competitions, like whatever that is, I don't know if it's maybe Sul-Americana or, let's see, Grêmio. I think they're in the Libertadores 2025. Yeah, they are. So if they can make it out of the group stage in the Libertadores, let's go. Oh no, they're not. Let's see who made it. Oh, okay. So here's the Libertadores people, or the Libertadores teams in Brazil: Botafogo, Flamengo, Palmeiras, Fortaleza, Internacional, São Paulo, Corinthians, and Bahia. And Corinthians, as we talked about, is out already. So Grêmio for them, if they can make the semis in the Sul-Americana, that's great. They could probably push pretty far in the Copa do Brasil. They're a really strong cup team because again they have a good home court advantage. They play a good style of football, and the core kind of like squad build up always like their kind of team identity is like we play rough, we play not rough, like tough, like they've got tough motherfuckers always. Like they're not the kind of team who you would think like, oh man, they're gonna fold. Like sometimes some Cruzeiro games or some Cruzeiro teams, you just know that they're not like up to the task. Grêmio is always like Montreal Canadiens. Like they made the playoffs, bro. It's anyone's game. I don't care if you're the number one seed and you won every single game. Like Montreal Canadiens are probably gonna sweep you. If not, at the very least, they'll take you to 7 games. Canadians like they'll show up. So that's kind of how I see Grêmio. They along with Cruzeiro, I think Cruzeiro is has the most Brazilian cups of all teams, and Grêmio is right behind them or right there with them.
Nice, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Moving
cool.
on to
next.
Moving on to Fortaleza, the city called Fortress, up in the north on the North
Fortress.
Ocean.
Up in the Nortress.
In the Nortress, yeah. What's up with them?
So Fortress is actually they're one of the Libertadores teams.
Nice. Yeah,
they are kind of like what we were talking about before, where just a well-run team, well managed. They have a coach who's probably like the longest lasting coach so far in Brazil, who's like Juan Pablo Voivoda. He's an Argentinian guy. They gave him an opportunity to really like build a system and a squad. They're kind of the Moneyball team where like they don't really have that much money. They're not like a splash to cashers. There's no like financial backers. They just got to make do with what they got and got to make the best of it. And they made some really cool signings. Like they signed Davi Luiz, who's like this. Is at the end of his career, let's say, but he's a good kind of, center back piece still in the back. They've got a good back line. They've signed some good but mercurial pieces like Davison, who's always kind of good for a few goals. Renato Kaiser is, he can kind of show up and score some goals sometimes. But they're not like a squad who's putting fear in anyone's hearts. Like, their kind of value will come from, following the system and being more than a sum of its parts. Like, again, they have a really great coach. They're a really well-managed team, and there's no superstars there. It's just a team of, well-built, put-together team who, is like I said, put together for a reason. It's not just like, oh, let's sign any like expensive player we can because we need to sell jerseys. I do think that was kind of the motivator behind the Davi Luiz transfer, because even as I said, like a good center back, I was like, yeah, good center back if you're the other team's attackers, because if you're cheering for that team, he's not a great center back anymore. But he'll sell some jerseys. He'll be like a force, and maybe he'll impart that Fortress style of playing to the young guns. But again, I actually expect quite a bit out of Fortaleza. I expect them to be like that 6-7 spot, like if not more.
Play in for the
although
Libertadores.
Yeah, something like that. Like one of the top Sudamericana or play in for the Libertadores. But also in the Libertadores, that's probably what they're gonna focus on. Like I know we're doing a preview of the Brasileirão, but I've realized like I've kind of neglected to mention those kind of things, because that's the most important part of the team's seasonal, like the team season's retrospective is like that's what they're kind of looking forward to or like putting their sights on. Libertadores for Fortaleza is more within reach than the Brasileirão, if you understand what I'm saying, because yes, like their group is going you never know. They may face some strong teams, but that's like 1 or 2 times. I think, as I said, like if they can put together a consistent sort of consistency is key in the Brasileirão, so that they have that on their side. But a Libertadores win or a Libertadores, semifinal or quarterfinal, like that's already huge for Fortaleza. That's considered a win. I don't know how passionate their fan base is. I'm sure there are a lot of passionate fans, but in terms of like putting that pressure on the players, I think the strength of Fortaleza is that like players are there, because they buy into the system and they're competing for one another rather than like they're scared that their kids are going to be killed by the fans.
Moving on to like the bottom of the barrel, like the bottom of the table, these guys are competing to not get relegated. Let's start with Vasco.
Vasco da Gama. Great Portuguese explorer who gave his name to this team. This team from Rio de Janeiro is the fourth biggest team from Rio, being Flamengo, probably in this order now: Flamengo, Botafogo, Fluminense, Vasco. Vasco is like the Chicago Cubs of Brazilian football, where it's like, brother, they're cursed for some reason. Like, good fortunes do not follow them at all. Like, they did something in the past, but like they were signed by they were one of the first SAFs of Brazil, so they were like, cool, we're gonna make it out of the mud, like we're gonna get rich investors, and then those rich investors got like implicated for tax fraud, and turns out they're not even rich. Like Vasco da Gama, I'm sorry if you're a Vasco fan, like their retrospective is don't embarrass yourselves.
Why do you say
please don't embarrass us
with the
because
accent?
they're Carioca, and that's how Carioca speak. Vasco da Gama. Like, side note, when I spent some time in Rio and I met this dude, this British guy, and then I was like asking him, well, how are you finding Portuguese? He was there like to study Portuguese, and I was like, oh, great. First of all, why? And then second of all, how are you finding it? And he was explaining to me like, oh, it's so hard to do the S sounds. Like, it's like for me, the hardest thing is like the sh, the sh. I was like, oh, brother, forget about that then. You don't need that shit. Like, most of us, the normal people, will understand you. Like, this is just a very much a very specific to this region accent. Yeah. And so I was like, yo, really? Your teacher helps or harms your progress. Like, this is a deep life story if you think about it. Like, imagine you're like meant to be the next Neymar, like spiritually or skill wise, and then your first ever soccer coach, like, I don't know, it's just a shitty person that you hate, that makes you hate soccer, and you never play it again. Done. That's it. No more Neymar. And like, to a lesser extent, like, it makes it that much harder for you to learn a language if your teacher has a difficult to understand accent. And then you're just like, oh, you know what, maybe this language is not for me. And then when I told him that, you just see the relief in his eyes, like, oh. And I'm like, yeah, see, me personally, I say the S's like I do in English, so there's no problem. Like, you can say it like that to me, and that wouldn't be like terribly misunderstood. Now, there's other kind of words that are tough for gringos to say, like rolling their R's and blah blah blah.
Yeah, and
but
the squiggle over the A, that's a tough accent.
Anyway,
tough syllable.
How to make that sound. Anyways, but you know what? Vasco has Felipe Coutinho, which is one of their one of Brazil's kind of like stars, and so he's kind of like he's a guy. He's there. He sells jerseys.
What about Red Bull Bragantino?
Red Bull Bragantino. Yeah, Red Bull Bragantino is kind of like, it's a Red Bull team. So, Red Bull went in, purchased the rights for Bragantino. Bragantino is like this. It's in Bragança Paulista. It's the small town in the like interior of São Paulo. It's got some tradition, but like whatever. I'd be curious, like I said, to know if there's actually a fan base, if there's actually people who, are passionate Bragantino fans that still feel connected to the team now with the Red Bull kind of branding. But they have what it takes to be kind of that Bahia sort of spot where it's like rich ownership that can inject money whenever, like a global. Like, you're a part of a global chain. So like Jurgen Klopp, who's like a great manager, he's now like one of the Red Bull consultants. So he came in, he like did some courses and like learned and taught the Red Bull way, So like they could be everything. They could be really, really good. They have a really good coach called Fernando Seabra, who used to be Cruzeiro's coach, who I think is a great coach if he's just given time. Like, if Red Bull gives Fernando Seabra the opportunity to be like a Fortaleza sort of coach, where like, okay, let him build the system, give him the patience, and then plus they get that like, no pressure, chill, like, all right, fine, we we don't expect you to win, like just let us launder some money through you and sign some good Brazilian
players. Take a few years to rebuild and like trust the process.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately what's going to happen with Bragantino. But if they're not careful, they're going to be relegated. I don't think they're scaring anybody for Copa do Brasil, but they're qualified to the third phase. So, they could. There's always a chance, that they can make that push. They have some good players on the squad. Like they have a good left back called Juninho Capixaba. They have an attacker called Eduardo Sacha, which I'm always like, oh, why do you have a name Sasha? Like, you must have hated that growing up, but must be right. Like he's white. He's white looking.
Sasha's a nickname for
Brazilian.
Alexander in Russia.
Bragantino. Please don't be relegated. I guess
all of these teams is like
Good
fighting
luck.
to not be relegated. So moving on to Juventude.
Moving on to Juventude, aka Youth.
Yeah.
So they're the other team from Rio Grande do Sul. They're happy to be here. They're happy to be here for a second year in a row. They don't really have that much money. They don't really have that much like at stake. They're actually sponsored by Stake, so they're kind of like, if you want, the Kick Sauber of this whole thing. They have a guy named Gilberto on their team, which like I got to know personally when he used to play at TFC. Really cool guy. He played at Cruzeiro. Didn't have a great kind of time at Cruzeiro, but I like him. Cool guy. I wish him all the best. I hope he scores like a shit ton of goals. Like he's a goal scorer, and they're but their kind of thing is like, let's not be relegated. Like they were third in their in the Gaúcho Championship, so they didn't make the finals. They were eliminated in the first round of the Brazilian Cup, so they're already out. There's not much to play for. They're not playing in any other tournaments, and if we're being honest, like the best thing they have going for them is the fact that they play in the South, which means like somewhat of home field advantage, with like just kind of like, and they play in the interior, so they're not in Porto Alegre, which is the capital of Rio Grande do Sul. They're in a city that's like still like a plane ride and then a bus ride. So there's that sort of element when people have to play them at home, and I feel like they've got upset potential, but like no one's looking at their fixture against Juventude and being like, that's the game, boys, we gotta specially prepare for.
It's an easy trap game. Like you just get
it
there,
is an easy trap game.
You're like, whatever, fuck these guys.
Interesting. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like that is the trap kind of of their home field advantage.
What about
going the other way actually, and going from the south and kind of colder part to all the way to the north to the reef, we have a very intelligently named Sport. That's the name of the team. Sport.
Yeah.
Sport of the Reef. Sport Reef. They were eliminated in the first round of the Brazilian Cup, so tough sledding for them. They've got a Portuguese coach called Pepa, and he used to coach Cruzeiro. So in my opinion, he's a really good coach. He made Cruzeiro. No, like he wasn't a really good coach in Cruzeiro, and I'm sad it didn't work out. But like he took a Cruzeiro team that was really bad, like had no business. Like they had two defenders who were like kind of like in the discard pile of the second division, so like not the greatest. And then and this guy came in and made them the least scored on team of the season.
Wow. Because
of his defensive schematics and how he kind of set up that team. They have a Portuguese midfielder, which I think is, like I said, anytime there's like a gringo, even though Portuguese makes sense and like with the connection of the coach being Portuguese, but like anytime someone from Europe comes over here, it's either like, whoa, that's great. Like there's two parts. Like it's either like Brazilians, we have this sort of like syndrome of like, oh, people like us, like external people like us, validation, yes. But then it's also like, You know, like when a 22-year-old guy is like picking up his 16-year-old girlfriend in high school. Like when you're the high school boys, you're like, one day. But then now that I'm like older, I'm like, oh yeah, why?
What the
22-year-old
fuck are you
guys
doing?
dating
Yeah.
16-year-old girls.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, yeah, why are you playing here, dude? Like, could you not make it in any other team in Portugal, like, or in Europe? Like,
Yeah. There's plenty
I
of
don't
teams in
know,
Europe. Yeah.
but like, yeah, if you're really, really like, if you're Martin Braithwaite, you're making bank, you know, and you're not getting pressured by the fucking media, and you're not having to answer like, Martin, why are you so bad? You're just like people. You know what? The fans might be fucking saying, Braithwaite, you're a fucking asshole. He's like, all right, Braithwaite, yeah, that's me, Braithwaite.
And he gets to live in Brazil, which is like
Thank you guys.
geographically very beautiful,
But like
very like warm.
in Happy Port, which is like I don't know what the city, I don't know what that vibe is like. But I mean, any city that's called Happy Port is pretty. It's gotta be happy at the very least.
There was a student that came from Porto Alegre, and he was like, "Yeah, like it's known for having a lot of gay people. They call it Gay Harbor, Porto Alegre." And he's like, I mean, I'm gay, but that's irrelevant. that's not part of my...
It's not because the city made me gay.
Yeah.
It's just because I was born gay.
I was born like this.
I'm gonna have to edit so much of this.
Whatever.
But it's true. You are born this way. You're beautiful in your way.
Yeah.
Porto Alegre.
We just thought it was so
sexy.
funny that he is like, it's like, well, yeah, I don't know why they're all gay. I'm gay.
But I'm gay because I love
gay.
having sex with men, but I don't know why they're gay. I don't know what it is about this city that makes people attracted to the same sex.
Yeah.
But let's go Grêmio.
two teams to wrap up. We got Ceará and then Mirassol. Mirassol we talked about a little bit. They're like the first time in the first division. They're like a underdog of underdogs, like Cinderella story. Honestly,
the underdogs.
Everybody like wishing the best for them, but they're probably just going to get relegated again this year.
Yeah.
And then what about Ceará?
No, so let's go into Mirassol a little bit because they have one X factor, and that is this striker that they have, which is like, I think he's like 40 years old. He's got long hair, but like kind of is balding. Like there's nothing impressive about this guy other than the fact that like when he plays against Cruzeiro, this guy fucking scores goals like it's no one's business. Like he scores goals like he's playing, like he's like like a 20-year-old playing against 11-year-olds. Like he's for whatever reason. So Léo Gamalho is his name. So
how many goals do you think he's gonna score tomorrow?
Yeah, if he scores 2, that'll be like good. We contained him.
Wow, he played great defense.
But like they've done this strategy where it's kind of like, hey, rich teams that have players that maybe aren't happy to be there, can you send them on loan, please, for free? And can you pay like maybe 40 to 80% of their contract while they're here? Like they'll get to play first division soccer, first division football's good for them. And then the other thing that they've done is like, give us your weak, give us your tired, give us the players you don't want anymore, but are relatively big names, but like really should have retired 8 years ago, and we'll take them. And really what I think happened is like they sold this player. So I don't know, I'm gonna butcher this story, but it was like they had this player that basically it was like this player that São Paulo then bought that from them and then sold to them. Actually, I thought they were only 25 years old. They're actually 99 years old. So 9th of November 1925 is when they were founded. So 9th of November this year, they're going to be 100 years old. Imagine if that 9th of November they're like celebrating, like, I don't know, freaking they clinched the Libertadores like spot for next year. There's also a future where on the 9th of November they're already like 5 weeks into being relegated already. Like still like 30 games left in the season.
The Cinderella story here would be on the 9th of November they win the game that prevents them from being relegated. And they're like, yes,
Yeah.
one more season in the first division. Let's go. 100
I mean,
years.
full
100 more years in the first division.
100 more. Yeah, exactly. They're like, no, wait, one more year.
We are one of 3 teams that have not been relegated.
I was about to say that. It's like, yes, they are one of 3 teams.
Yeah.
Technically, they also have not been relegated. Oh, that's so funny.
I wish all
They've
the
also
best for them
never.
after this
They've also
weekend.
never lost a game. They've also never lost a game in the
There you go.
Brasileirão, and I hope that changes tomorrow swiftly. I hope tomorrow they become like they've never won a game in the first division.
We're gonna give them the welcome to the
So-
NBA moment.
So for Cruzeiro's sake, let's say they've never won a single game. I don't know what makes it better. They never lost a single game, or they never won a single game. Yeah,
Last team, Ceará.
Last team, Ceará. Ceará. Que tudo vai dar. Edit that in with that song. It's called Será by Legião Urbana.
Okay.
Será que tudo pode acontecer? Okay, Ceará. They got a shitty retrospective. They were undefeated. Cearense Championship. They're undefeated. They beat Fortaleza. They're undefeated. They have not lost a game. They have an interesting coach called Léo Condé. They have a good striker called Pedro Raul, and that's enough for Ceará. Period. No more time devoted to them.
And that's all you need to know. Yeah, they're in the same city.
And there's a guy
as
named
Fortaleza.
Lucas.
And up in the north, it's the state. Fortaleza is the city. Ceará is the state. There's a team called Fortaleza. There's a team called Ceará.
Yeah, it's like, you think you're better than us? We'll just name ourselves after the state. And then, you know what? One of them is going to change their name to just the name of the country. And then it'll just be
And
the name
we're
of the hemisphere.
Brazil, and we're South America.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the childish arguments.
Yeah.
Like, we represent the city of Fortress. Well, we
Infinity
represent the
plus
whole
one.
state. Yeah, Infinity plus 1.
All right. Yeah,
Anyways, I
well,
would love to go to Fortaleza and maybe watch a Ceará Fortaleza derby. That'd be sick. Let's put that as a goal. Yo, let's put that as a goal of this season. And if not this season, the next season. We want to watch your derbies. Teams, bring us. We'll cover your team. We'll do all the behind the scenes. We'll introduce your team to an English audience. Like, let's go. We're the Brazilianaires, baby, and we're rich in culture. So that was what I want to call Ginga FC, where we don't just talk football, we talk futebol. Futebol arte, baby. We'll be back next week, or maybe tomorrow. We'll be back at some point. We might already be back. There might already be more videos up by the time you're watching this, you lazy bastard. So go to our site, subscribe, and go catch the madness, the meltdowns, the magic moments. And you know what, Vino? Next time I'm gonna bring in the memes that happened on the weekend.
nice.
Like next week, we're gonna recap the goals, the highlights, the storylines, and the freaking memes, because this league is full of memes. Like dogs will invade fields sometimes and like play goalie for the other team. It's freaking crazy. So keep the rhythm going here. Subscribe to the channel. Follow me at Vic Tropical. Follow him at Vino for Realo on Instagram. That's the only one I can think of other than YouTube right now, because I don't use any of the other ones. But follow us on other places. Go on my website, victorlana.com. Follow Real Music Collective
Follow
and
us in
join the
real life.
Brazilianaires movement. No, please don't. Please don't. You don't know where I live.
Follow us
If you
online.
see me on the street, cross. If you see me in the
I'll
street,
put his address
cross the
in the
street.
link in the description.
I'm moving next week.
All right. Yeah.
So join the Brazilianaires movement, because we're rich in culture and we're bringing you with us. I'm Vic Tropical. That's Vino for Realo. And until next time, valeu.
Valeu.